Peter Goldsmith's early career took him with the Peace Corps to Ecuador, where he focused on cattle. But soy later became his thing. In his studies in academics, then investment funds, research, teaching in Argentina, and eventually at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Hi, I'm Dave Price, and this is the American Farmland Owner Podcast. Dr. Goldsmith has served as the principal and lead investigator at the Soybean Innovation Lab in Champaign for the past 12 years. The lab is part of a national system of 19 labs in 17 states, or at least it was. This month, he found out the Trump administration had canceled the funding that sustained this soybean research for decades. So how are you? Where's your head?
Well, it's a great question. I got it multiple levels. One is, this is just grief from a loss of. It's funny you said that because I'm, between calls and so forth, like, what am I doing? Because I have no inbound emails other than media and, worthless stuff that, because we're not allowed to work. We're not working. And I haven't not done that forever. So that's odd. And it just happened, and just finish that thought was, this was a build from 2012 when I actually wrote the proposal that then was tendered and won the tender back in 2013 when we started. And it's been a wildly successful lab, from not just me saying it, but others who know us and so forth. And it spawned a whole nother activity and some USAID. We were so successful, wanted us to build some software management system to train the other labs because we've had such impact, sustained impact. So there's grief there, a loss of something, building a business, and I've built other businesses and so forth. But this one in particular is real grief that it's gone. It's gone. And for the team, we have an associate director who runs the day-to-day, Dr. Santos, and she was very successful, not only as we hired in the right people, but creating a family and folks that could work in an interdisciplinary way together to serve our clients. And we're very effective at meeting the needs of our clients, and that's part of our secret sauce, is that we collaborate really well between ourselves, among ourselves, but then in serving our clients. We really built something here, and we just had our annual retreat in December. And people come from outside SIL to attend that. And people say this is very, very different. This is the way it should be done. So that loss is there. And then just on a personal note, I just happened, had I known, like a stupid move, I retired from my faculty position on December 31st. So I was doing faculty work, teaching, doing all that sort of thing, running the Soybean Lab, and then running another kind of business, the software build called Innovation to Impact. So I got stopped, went on a pension for the faculty part, and thought, well, now I love running SIL, working with the team and working with our clients. Love the software build. That whole thing just came up the last couple of years. That's been great and growing. Just keep rolling, and it'll be great. Now, focus on my 1.5-year-old, my 5-year-old, and take care of aging parents, be a good husband to my wife, start shopping for mulch. I don't know what I'm going to do. I didn't have a plan B.
You talked about that retreat in December. You never saw any of this coming?
No, nobody had any idea. I mean, up until, I don't know when the first USAID, even the 26, we knew USAID was under scrutiny, but not until I got the executive order on the 27th that I realized it was real. We were rolling. I mean, we had events, travel, got hired in to do some work with the private sector in southern Malawi. That was going to go here in March. I had a team in country in southern Malawi at the time, had to bug them out. That was an effort into itself. So it was a complete blindside. By every measure, we were highly successful, highly valued, and there was no indication that there was any issue whatsoever. And we had worked we're in operation during the first Trump administration, and we were almost a poster child because our orientation to the private sector and our collaboration, most of our clients are private firms, whether partners here in the US, companies and so forth looking to get into the market in Africa, or African private sector looking to move into soy, and they needed soy technologies and our capacity and so forth. So we were the way. This was really a cool example, an innovation lab, showing how you build sustainable impact and growth with the private sector. And we have a case study that was recently published that lays that out. So we did well during the first Trump administration because of our market orientation.
I don't want to dismiss the disappointment and the grieving as you talked about, but if we can somehow set that aside for just a couple of minutes, like give me a couple of the greatest hits. I mean, you've been at this for a while, and I presume that because of what's happened, it's made you look back. So there have to be things that stick out where you really made a big impact.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple of examples, and they'll also tee up of what the opportunity lost, the stuff that won't happen. And so we have a pipeline of technologies. Some are more mature and some are, and so they're up and out, commercialized. And they kind of hit their marks. And then we have newer stuff, follow-on technologies in the pipeline that are the dead stop technologies. But the researcher who leads our mechanization, so in establishing the foundation, our mission is to establish the foundation for soybean market development in Africa. We did research, making a very long story short, figured it out that one of the choke points was mechanization. And Dr. Carrie Clark at Missouri leads our mechanization unit. And making her long story short about her research and how she figured this out, but she did the good work and so forth, she figured out that a key reason for failure for mechanization, and mechanization is really subtext for scale and moving into quality. It does a lot of things for an economy as opposed to hand work. And all of soybean was hand threshed, meaning bean from pod, which is untenable. You can't adopt soy. You can't have a soy market. You can't be a soy importer. I mean, nothing happens if you can't mechanically thresh. It's a big choke point. Anyway, she figured this all out and developed a unique model based on commercial scale, so not farm scale, because farms are small, but commercial scale, locally produced, fabricated, local supply chain, local parts supply chain, mechanical threshers. So these change the kind of historical pattern of imported equipment, high quality equipment. It was great equipment, but they weren't appropriate for the market because supply chains were weak. You couldn't get parts. You couldn't maintain them. Didn't have trained technicians and so on and so forth. So the ecosystem just was not ready for a John Deere tractor or an AGCO tractor or whatever it might be. And so Dr. Clark found appropriate technology, older technology that could be adopted. She developed the CAD plans, trained fabricators, and it was a full demand pull. Folks who wanted to build threshers pulled her in and then would host the training. And she trained hundreds of fabricators. And now, this is now somewhat old news, a couple of years. These have been commercialized. Entrepreneurs have, adapted and created new versions of the thresher. She worked herself completely out of a job. It was perfect. It was absolute perfection. These are commercially produced, sold in Ghana, Ethiopia, Zambia, and lots of other countries. We have really no business with the thresher. It was the ROI on that, you can calculate it, but anyway, I mean, was huge because it's up and operating, and now there's no donor dollars, no government subsidy dollars. SIL isn't involved. It's great. So that was an example of a success. In the seed space, varietal release. So another choke point was lack of improved varieties. So varietal release is a very difficult, lengthy process. So farmers don't have good seed. So they have very old varieties. They don't have an incentive to purchase fresh, new seed, new varieties. So you never get off of low yield. So then processors can't invest in soy. So they don't put CapEx in place. So they know soybean, might be here next week, might not be. They can't operate a plant 365 to soy. And this has huge negative feedback to the US growers. Because if folks can't commit their capital to soybean, they're not going to be trading in soybean, not buying soybean, not going to be scaling up in soybean, not going to be importing soy or soy products. Livestock is not going to adopt the corn soy ration, for example. So anyway, seed, big choke point. And the system, I mean, this isn't in 2013, was not new news. Everyone knew it, but nobody had figured it out. Still figured it out. And so we assembled a network solution of folks that had an incentive to produce and market seed. So seed companies all across Sub-Saharan Africa who then wanted to trial soybean varieties. And they had an incentive. So this is harnessing the private sector that was in place, that was interest. 240 locations around 31 countries, sharing their results, testing 30, 40 varieties, high quality data, high quality trialing, and the actual entrepreneurs getting their hands dirty the seed companies themselves doing the trials, learning about the varieties, and then being able to then identify what's best for their business. And this, again, working ourselves out of a job, they register the variety, they license it to the originator, the company that owns it, and SIL is out of work. So for a country like Malawi had its last variety released in 2010. It's fast forward to 2019, so 9 years. It's a north-south. Anyone who knows soybean sensitive to photoperiod. Malawi is a north-south country. But one variety for a whole country for 9 years. They now have released 9, the 10th variety will be this year. And so the pipeline and the sale of seed and the system is up and away. So there's a catalog of 388 varieties, 45 varieties are in the pipeline. The varietal release process, which was glacial, is now frenetic and away it goes. So 8x improvement in the release of varieties, and it's been a great success. So that's another technology that's more mature, that's really up and working, and been very successful. I go through others. I could flip over to the newer stuff that's now not going to happen, but I'll stop there.
So, do you have, as you're talking, you use the word grieving, and you can give a laundry list of successes that SIL has accomplished. And as you just pointed out a couple of different ways in your examples, you essentially put yourself out of work in a couple of these projects, right? Because you get the folks on the other side successful at what they're doing. So as you sit in your office and you've watched colleagues disappear, I presume,
Yep,
do you sit there and still have hope that a pause can be unpaused, or is this a permanent grieving and you have to figure out where the heck to go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm positive that some we're asking and asked through back channels, but also forward channels with like our legislative congressional delegation. They know us, they love us. They've known us for a long time, to ask for a review. The innovation labs, there are 19 of them in 17 states. And the State Department, the government cast a big net when it cast a net over USAID and caught some things that they didn't like, but they also caught some things I think they would like the innovation labs. And they not necessarily would, at the administration level, know us. Our congressional delegations know us. At the state level, the land grants, they know us, but not in a new administration know that they caught us up. So the ask is fairly simple, to say, hey, have a look. And if you still don't think that this is a high return on investment to U.S. interest in the U.S. farmers, absolutely shut it down. But I think you're going to see, we know they're going to see a very high ROI on these innovation labs. SIL, soybean, we're in Illinois, peanut is in Georgia, aquaculture is in Mississippi. I mean, these are great groups that are creating opportunities for U.S. interest in U.S. agribusiness. So that's the hope. and keep our fingers crossed. We haven't heard anything yet, but we're hopeful.
How did you get to this position? How did SIL become your life?
Um, well, so I'm an ag economist, I did, I was in industry before, so I'm a kind of a late PhD. I don't know, light bulb took a while to, whatever, people change. And so I
Sure.
was 35 when I got my PhD. And so I was in the dairy industry at the time. And, I was milking cows and breeding cows, and, that was kind of, but I took a position, my first faculty position was in Montreal at McGill University in Quebec. Is a very ag-centric province, large dairy, and not that much soybean, though it did start to grow, but I was focused livestock. But some folks saw my work and so forth and brought me down to Illinois, where dairy had shrunken to almost nothing, but soybean was great, and I knew soybean feed, nutrition, and as a producer, soy was important. Anyway, but I had a background in Latin America because I had been a Peace Corps volunteer, and that was artificial insemination cattle, so not soybean either. But I started to do research, use my Latin American network and language skills and so on and so forth. And that was just when soybean was starting in Argentina and Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
The right guy at the right, it's just luck. And focused on seed intellectual property, because this kind of predates about the same time that GM and Roundup Ready was coming in, and everyone was trying to figure out how to, anti-GM and all this stuff. And, as American, you kind of have a decent perspective on things. Anyway, so I applied my trade and was working in South America as a researcher, consultant, professor, teacher, and so would go back and forth. And that experience working with the industry and the growth of the industry in Mato Grosso, Brazil, gave me unique skills in a very little area for that understood soybean economics, the industrial growth of, Mato Grosso, much like the Midwest US, was nothing at a time, and the agro-industrial complex grew. And so I just had that expertise. That's what caught the eye of the folks at USAID in 2012 to come out and visit with me and to say, what's this, soybean could really be an engine, not only for a new market, and, that was a very big positive, a new market for US exports, but also simultaneously generate real economic growth and finally kind of break the back of poverty, malnutrition in Africa, and create economic wealth and trade partners and so forth. So that's how. So I don't, at Thanksgiving I'm not talking much at Thanksgiving because my siblings are doing all these known very interesting things, and nobody wants to hear a discussion about soybean. But that just happened to be my little niche that happened at a point in time that had some value.
So, since you previously were essentially doing 3 gigs at the same time, that I presume that you have a brain and a psyche that perhaps unlike many men, I think women seem to be better at this multitasking skill than we perhaps are. But regardless, if you were able to process kind of and handle doing three things at once, then as you sit here right now, are you thinking of this kind of in a couple of ways, in the sense that if you get the announcement that, hey, we're going to unpause this, and then you've got to rush out and try to bring back colleagues who've probably moved on, which is a thing of itself. But so that could be one option, but then if you hear that that's not a likely option, is there a way to kind of reform, refocus, if you will? Because you clearly had a lot of really smart people doing a lot of really thoughtful and life-changing
Yeah.
work, right, to present and promote opportunity. So is there a way to reformat it in another way, or is that too insensitive to ask already?
No, I think it's really a good question to ask. And, frankly, I've been focused on the prior and trying to work channels and do the best I can to support the employees and see if we can get a review and that sort of thing. And in the back of my mind, I thought about, what would be jump into a new way of thinking and so forth. But I haven't spent a lot of time, and I've talked to some people, and the LinkedIn post was helpful, and some people have reached out and that sort of thing. But it's really been on the back burner. I don't know what a plan B might look like for the lab. We were doing, it's classic public sector, high risk, low return work. We were de-risking the market for the private sector to follow on. It's very simple. That's what I was hired to do, and we were doing it. And the public sector is doing it because you can't privatize it. It's just too gnarly, too messy. US is not that comfortable. We work with a lot of firms. Europeans are more comfortable working. Obviously, they have a colonial history with Africa. And so our work was especially useful for US agribusiness because we could handle the gnarly bits. And we did, and we do. So what that value proposition is, and it's pretty murky, at least in my mind right now. After April 15, when we're fully shuttered, I don't know where it'll go. I absolutely do not know if we reform. I would definitely be open to it. I'm good at it, love it, and so forth. And I'm, trying to be creative, and that's what I'm good at, being creative and nonlinear and thinking about, different. Nothing right at the moment. But great question. That's I'll be thinking about that for a while yet.
Well, and I guess the reason I ask is that if this goes in sort of if you kind of take an America first kind of mentality to the X level here, and we have to be completely intra focused, where we're only going to concentrate everything we do within our borders, for example. Is there a way to pivot? It's not like, regardless of what happens with SIL, it's not like you're going to all of a sudden not believe in the power of soy.
Right. No, right. It's I could see, and we do not a fair bit. I mean, so actual investment, and I did this when I was working in South America, that US investors had an interest in investing in South America, and they're US investors interested, maybe surprising, but investing in Africa and supporting that, would be a very America first sort of activity. So I've worked with consultancies, both in Africa and in Latin America on that angle. So that would be a very tight America first sort of foray. But there are a number of firms as well who have seed companies, tech firms also looking to. I mean, Africa right now is a non-GM, other than South Africa, is a non-GM region. It's a lot of land that could go and stay non-GM. So there's a lot of interest among those U.S. agribusinesses, including U.S. soy, that very much have a stake in the GM being the industrial standard for Africa, and that's beyond soy, cotton, corn, the whole 9 yards. So those firms too have an interest in kind of the future of Africa. I could see us. We already collaborate with them, but is there a value proposition there? I don't know. For example, there's an organization called the Farmers Fund called USAC, United States Soybean Export Council, and they had an interest in investment in helping the industry in Africa adapt and commit greater, essentially CapEx to soy. And since we're on the ground, we're soy. I mean, we were their technical backstop to help them do that. It's a tough issue. I don't know whether their commitment was not super strong, or what, it's above my pay grade of what went on internally. But you could see the U.S. growers too needing a sill to help them create markets and so forth. And that's where there's been back channel talk. I heard mentioned that maybe the best place for the innovation labs, aka SIL, would be in the USDA. So maybe that's a year from now, something happens, and that might be in the future. But that's a long-windy answer to, I don't really have anything real clear.
Understandable. Well, I know this is a delicate time, so very much appreciate the time, insight, and conversation.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the interest. I know my fellow folks on my team, but also in the other innovation labs, appreciate the interest, and we'll keep fighting the good fight, and hopefully we'll get that review, and we'll be able to open the doors again.
Yes, sir. All right. Hey, thank you much. We appreciate it.
Nice chatting with you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You can find out the message that Peter Goldsmith sent out after he found out that his funding was gone and that he would have to let his colleagues go. It's part of our profile piece about him in the American Farmland Owner newsletter. Our newsletter comes out every week, and it's free. It's the place where landowners get their news. You can get in-depth reporting, analysis, interviews, and trends. It's all in one place, and you can read it when it's convenient for you. Check it out at AmericanFarmlandOwner.com. Thanks for listening, and thanks for caring about the future of our farmers.